All right, so uh, looks like we're tackling some serious therapy knowledge today.
Yeah.
We've got a real mix here.
Mhm.
We've got Rogerian therapy,
Right.
couples therapy, family dynamics,
Uh-huh.
even a peek into integrative psychotherapy.
Yeah.
You really went deep on this one. How we humans understand and change ourselves and our relationships.
It is fascinating, isn't it? You're exploring not just the how-to of therapy, but also kind of the underlying philosophy of what makes it work
Yeah.
across so many different contexts.
Yeah, okay, so the first thing that jumps out at me from all this material
Mm.
is Carl Rogers and his client-centered therapy.
Right.
Is this really the foundation for everything else we're going to be looking at?
In many ways, yes.
Okay.
Rogers was a revolutionary figure.
Hmm.
He shifted the focus away from the therapist as the expert
Yeah.
and onto the client as
Alright.
the expert on their own experience.
Okay.
It's all about that humanistic core,
Right.
believing in people's inherent goodness and their drive to become the best versions of themselves.
Okay, but isn't that a little optimistic? I mean, people can be
Right.
pretty messed up sometimes.
But the beauty of it,
Okay.
Rogers wasn't naive.
Right.
He understood that people could get stuck, they can make bad choices,
Uh-huh.
even hurt themselves and others.
Right.
But his focus was on the potential within each person,
Okay.
what he called self-actualization.
Mm.
And a key part of that, according to his self-theory,
Yeah.
is how we see ourselves in relation to our environment.
So a healthy environment allows us to reach our full potential,
Right.
and then a toxic one can stunt our growth.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that makes sense.
hmm
But how does that actually play out in therapy?
That's where the therapist's role becomes really interesting in Rogerian therapy.
Oh.
It's not about having all the answers or even giving advice.
Right.
It's about embodying certain qualities
Okay.
that create a nurturing environment for the client to explore their own inner world.
We're talking about those core conditions. Empathy, unconditional positive regard,
Yes.
and genuineness.
Mm-hmm.
Big words.
Mm-hmm.
But what do they actually look like in practice?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
Imagine you're finally able to talk to someone who truly gets what you're going through,
Mm-hmm.
not just intellectually, but emotionally.
Okay.
They don't judge you, even when you judge yourself,
Right.
and they're completely real with you, no professional facade.
Okay.
That's the power of Rogerian therapy.
Right.
It creates a space where you can be your most authentic self,
Mm-hmm.
warts and all,
Yeah.
and still feel accepted and valued.
Okay. Now that you put it that way, I can see why it's called client-centered.
Right.
It's about empowering the client to find their own way, not just following the therapist's lead.
Exactly.
Yeah,
The
but-
therapist isn't dictating goals.
Right.
It's a collaborative process of exploration and discovery.
Mm.
The therapist is more of a facilitator, helping the client tap into their own inner wisdom and develop self-trust.
But doesn't that mean it could take forever? What if the client doesn't actually know what they need?
That's a common misconception. It's not about the therapist having no expertise.
Right.
It's about recognizing that the client is the ultimate expert on their own experience.
Hmm.
And while Rogerian therapy may not be a quick fix,
Right.
it can lead to profound and lasting change.
Okay. Our sources also mention that Rogers' ideas have been adapted and expanded upon in couples therapy and family therapy.
Right.
So how does that work? Does the therapist just apply those same core conditions to a group setting?
It's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
While those core conditions are still foundational,
Hmm.
the dynamics become more complex when you're dealing with multiple people and their interconnected relationships.
Right.
In couples therapy, for example, you're not just exploring two individuals' inner worlds,
Right.
but also how those worlds collide and create shared patterns of interaction.
So it's not just about each person feeling understood by the therapist, but
Uh-uh.
also understanding each other. Oh, that sounds tricky.
It can be,
Yeah.
especially when those patterns are deeply ingrained
Mm-hmm.
and based on past hurts or unmet needs.
Right.
But the Rogerian principles of empathy, unconditional positive regard, and genuineness
Yeah.
create a safe space for couples to communicate more effectively
Okay.
and build a stronger, more fulfilling connection.
It sounds like Rogers' ideas have had a huge impact on the field of therapy.
Yes.
But one thing I noticed is that our sources also mention some important considerations,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to cultural awareness.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
While Rogers's core conditions are universal in a sense,
Right.
they can't be applied in a cookie-cutter fashion.
Okay.
Therapists need to be deeply aware of how culture shapes communication and perception.
Yeah.
What might seem like empathy in one culture could be misconstrued in another.
Like our source material talks about
Yeah.
eye contact, personal space, and expressing emotions.
Right.
All things that can mean very different things,
Ex-
depending on someone's cultural background.
A skilled therapist needs to be attuned to these nuances
Right.
to avoid misunderstandings and create a truly safe and supportive space for every client. It's about respecting the client's cultural framework, not imposing your own.
So it's like learning another language. You need to understand all the subtle cues and meanings to truly connect.
Precisely.
Okay.
And that brings us to an interesting point. Expanding the circle beyond individual therapy.
Okay, so how does this all play out in couples therapy specifically?
Right.
I'm guessing it's not as simple as just having two people sit on a couch and talk about their feelings.
Not quite.
Okay.
Couples therapy, particularly when rooted in a Rogerian framework, is about understanding how two individuals, each with their unique histories and perspectives, come together and create a shared reality.
Okay.
And sometimes that reality is more like a battlefield than a peaceful haven.
So it's not just about learning new communication skills,
Right?
but also about unlearning harmful patterns that are getting in the way.
Exactly.
Hey.
It's about recognizing how those individual scripts we carry from past relationships, especially our families of origin, can play out in our current partnerships. And those scripts are often running in the background, unconsciously influencing how we react and interpret things.
It's like having those old tapes playing in our heads, telling us how to behave and what to expect from others.
Yeah.
No wonder relationships can be so complicated.
But here's the good news.
Okay.
Once we become aware of those scripts, we can start to rewrite them.
Right.
And that's where the therapeutic process can be so powerful. It gives couples a safe space to explore those patterns, understand their origins, and create new, healthier ways of relating to each other.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, how do things change when you bring families into the picture? I imagine that adds another layer of complexity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Family therapy takes this idea of interconnectedness to a whole other level.
Okay.
It shifts the focus from the individual as the problem to the family system as a whole.
Okay.
The idea is that individual issues can often be symptoms of a dysfunctional family system.
So instead of trying to fix the individual, family therapy looks at how the whole system needs to adapt.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can see how that could be helpful.
Yeah.
But also potentially very challenging.
It can be both.
Okay.
It requires a shift in perspective, seeing the family as a kind of living organism with its own unique patterns of communication, unspoken rules, and roles that each member plays.
Like that mobile analogy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If one part moves, the whole structure is affected.
And that's where family therapy comes in.
Okay.
It helps families understand those intricate connections and find a healthier balance.
It sounds like you're shifting the focus from blaming the identified patient to understanding how everyone contributes to the dynamics.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's about fostering empathy and collaboration, helping each family member feel seen, heard, and valued.
Okay, so we've talked about Rogerian therapy and how those principles can be applied in couples and family therapy.
Right.
But our sources also mention something called psychodynamic couples therapy.
Yeah.
How is that different?
Psychodynamic couples therapy dives deeper into the unconscious processes that shape our relationships.
Okay.
It's about exploring how our past experiences, particularly with our parents or primary caregivers, can create unconscious blueprints that we carry into our adult relationships.
So those echoes of the past we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. It's not about blaming our parents, but about understanding how those early attachments and relational patterns can unconsciously influence our choices and reactions in our current relationships.
It's like we're carrying those invisible suitcases filled with our past experience. And sometimes they need to be unpacked and examined to truly move forward.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And that's what psychodynamic couples therapy does.
Right.
It helps couples unpack those suitcases, explore those echoes of the past, and understand how they might be contributing to current conflicts or disconnection.
So instead of just focusing on the here and now, it takes a longer view, looking at the historical roots of the relationship.
Exactly. It's about connecting the dots between the past and the present.
Right.
Helping couples understand how those early experiences might be playing out in their current dynamics. And by bringing those unconscious patterns into conscious awareness, couples can start to make more intentional choices.
Right.
And create healthier, more fulfilling relationships.
This is making me rethink everything I thought I knew about couples therapy.
It's a fascinating and complex field.
Yeah.
And there's always more to learn. Which brings us to another important aspect of your exploration. Integrative psychotherapy.
Okay, so up until now, we've been focusing on Rogers and his influence. But it seems like there are a lot of different schools of thought in therapy.
Yeah.
How does someone make sense of it all?
That's where integrative psychotherapy comes in.
Okay.
It's a way of thinking about therapy that moves beyond those traditional boundaries between different schools of thought and seeks to create a more holistic and personalized approach.
So instead of just sticking to one theory, integrative psychotherapy draws on the best of different approaches.
Exactly. Okay. It's about recognizing that no single theory has all the answers.
Right.
And that each client is unique with their own individual needs and preferences.
It's like being a chef who understands the nuances of different ingredients and how they combine to create a delicious and nutritious meal rather than just sticking to one type of cuisine.
A perfect analogy. Yeah.
And that's the beauty of integrative psychotherapy.
Right.
It allows for flexibility and creativity, tailoring the approach to the specific client and their unique situation.
It sounds like a more sophisticated and nuanced way of thinking about therapy.
It is.
But how does it actually work in practice?
There are different ways to integrate different approaches.
Okay.
And it often depends on the therapist's own training and experience. Some therapists might have a primary theoretical orientation, but be open to incorporating techniques from other approaches.
Okay.
Others might take a more eclectic approach, drawing on different theories as needed.
So there's no one right way to do integrative psychotherapy?
Not exactly.
Right.
It's more about having a clear rationale for why you're choosing certain approaches.
Right.
And being able to articulate that to the client.
It sounds like it requires a lot of knowledge and skill to be able to effectively integrate different approaches.
It does.
Yeah.
But the payoff can be significant.
Integrative psychotherapy allows therapists to tailor their approach to the individual client, drawing on the best tools from different theories to create a truly personalized and effective treatment plan.
It sounds like the field of therapy is constantly evolving and becoming more complex.
It is.
But one thing our sources keep mentioning is the importance of evidence-based practice.
Yeah.
What does that mean exactly?
It means that we're not just relying on intuition or personal experience to guide our choices in therapy.
Okay.
We're also looking at the scientific evidence,
Right.
the research that tells us what treatments are most effective for specific issues.
So it's about making sure that therapy has more than just good vibes.
Exactly.
It's grounded in solid research.
And it's not about dismissing other approaches,
Right.
but about having a strong foundation of evidence to guide our decisions.
Okay.
And ensure that we're providing the best possible care for our clients.
Yeah, it makes sense to want to use treatments that have been proven to work.
And that focus on evidence-based practice is having a big impact on the field of therapy.
Okay.
We're seeing a shift towards more directive, psychoeducational, and problem-focused approaches.
So instead of just talking about feelings,
Right.
there's more of a focus on teaching skills and strategies for coping with specific problems.
Exactly. It's about empowering clients to take an active role in their own healing and growth,
Right.
giving them concrete tools and techniques that they can use in their daily lives.
It sounds like the field of therapy is moving in a really interesting direction,
It is.
blending those core Rogerian principles with a more evidence-based and action-oriented approach.
It is an exciting time to be exploring the world of therapy.
Yeah.
And for you, as you continue your deep dive into these sources, it's about considering how these different perspectives resonate with your own experiences and goals.
Boy.
What aspects of Rogerian therapy, couples therapy, or integrative psychotherapy feel most aligned with your own journey of growth and healing?
That's something to ponder as we continue our exploration.
It is. You know, one area we haven't really touched on yet is group therapy. It's a fascinating approach that offers a unique set of benefits and challenges.
I'll admit, I've always been a little curious about group therapy,
Right.
but also a bit intimidated.
Yeah.
Is it really like those movie scenes where everyone sits in a circle
Uh-huh.
and spills their deepest secrets?
Not quite.
Okay.
While group therapy can be a powerful space for vulnerability and sharing,
Right.
it's not about forced confessions or
No.
dramatic revelations.
Right.
It's more about creating a supportive community
Mm-hmm.
where individuals can explore their challenges,
Yeah.
learn from each other's experiences,
Right.
and practice new ways of relating.
So it's like a laboratory for social interaction, but with a safety net.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
Group therapy provides a unique opportunity to see how our patterns of relating play out in a microcosm. It allows us to get feedback from multiple perspectives, not just the therapist's, and experiment with new behaviors in a safe and supportive environment.
Our sources highlight some specific advantages of group therapy.
Right.
One that stood out to me is the idea of instilling hope. How does that work in a group setting?
Imagine being in a group with people who have faced similar challenges and come out of the other side.
Right.
Hearing their stories of resilience and recovery can be incredibly powerful,
Right.
reminding us that change is possible, even when it feels impossible.
It's like seeing living proof that we're not alone in our struggles.
Exactly.
And that there is a way forward.
And beyond just inspiration. Group therapy offers opportunities for interpersonal learning.
Right.
It's a chance to practice new communication skills, challenge old patterns, and get real-time feedback on how we're impacting others.
It sounds like a valuable experience.
It is.
But also potentially intense.
Yeah.
What if someone's not ready to share their deepest vulnerabilities with a group of strangers?
That's understandable.
Right.
Group therapy isn't for everyone.
Okay.
And it's important to find a group that feels safe and supportive.
Right.
A skilled group therapist will create a space where individuals can participate at their own pace, sharing only what they feel comfortable with.
One of the terms our sources use to describe group dynamics is corrective recapitulation of the primary family experience.
Right.
That sounds pretty technical.
It's a mouthful, isn't it?
Yeah, what does it actually mean?
It basically means that the group dynamic can often mirror the dynamics of our original families.
Okay.
We might unconsciously start relating to the therapist or other group members in ways that resemble how we interacted with our parents or siblings.
So it's like those old family patterns are resurfacing.
Exactly.
But now in a setting where they can be examined and challenged.
With the guidance of the therapist, group members can start to recognize those patterns, understand their origins, and experiment with new ways of relating.
It sounds like a powerful opportunity for growth.
It is.
But also potentially triggering.
That's why it's crucial to have a skilled and experienced therapist leading the group. Someone who can create a safe and supportive environment for exploring those sensitive dynamics.
Our sources also mention the concept of catharsis as a benefit of group therapy. I can see how the group setting might create a unique space for emotional release.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Catharsis is that feeling of relief
Right.
that can come from expressing pent-up emotions in a safe and supportive environment.
Okay.
And when that release happens in the context of a group, it can also foster a sense of shared humanity and understanding.
It's like realizing that we all have our struggles
Exactly.
and our shadows, and that it's okay to let those out in the open.
And that vulnerability can actually lead to deeper connections and a sense of belonging within the group.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that we're not alone in our pain or our journey towards healing.
This is making me realize that there's so much more to therapy than just the one-on-one setting.
There is.
It seems like group therapy offers a unique opportunity for growth and connection.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't get in individual therapy.
It definitely does. And speaking of different settings and approaches, let's dive back into the world of family therapy, which, as we mentioned earlier, takes a systemic view of individual challenges.
So instead of focusing solely on the identified patient, family therapy looks at the interconnectedness of the entire family unit.
Exactly.
And how those dynamics might be contributing to the problem.
It's about understanding the patterns of communication. The unspoken rules, the roles each family member plays in maintaining those patterns, and how all of that can either support or hinder an individual's well-being.
And as we discussed earlier, sometimes an individual's symptoms can actually be a reflection of something going on within the larger family system.
Precisely. It's like that mobile analogy again. If one part of the system is out of balance, it can affect the entire structure. And that's why it's often more effective to work with the whole family system, rather than just focusing on the individual who's presenting the symptoms.
So how does family therapy actually work? Are there different approaches or models within this field?
There are actually several different models of family therapy that have emerged over the years,
Right.
each with its own unique perspective and set of techniques.
Our sources mention structural family therapy.
Yeah.
Developed by Salvador Minuchin.
Right.
What's that all about?
Minuchin's approach, as the name suggests, focuses on the structure of the family.
Okay.
How are the boundaries defined?
Right.
Who has the power?
What are the alliances? It's like looking at the architecture of the family system.
Oh, okay.
Understanding how the different parts are connected.
Right.
And how the weight is distributed.
So if the structure is faulty,
Right.
the whole system can become unstable.
Exactly.
Okay.
And according to Minuchin, problems can arise
Yeah.
when those boundaries become too rigid or too loose,
Right.
or when there are unhealthy alliances within the family.
Can you give us an example of how this might play out in a family?
Sure. Imagine a family where the parents are constantly undermining each other's authority in front of the children.
Okay.
This can create chaos and confusion for the kids,
Right.
making it difficult for them to feel secure and develop a sense of order in their lives.
Oh.
Or imagine a family where a child is always caught in the middle of parental conflict,
Right.
forced to take sides or act as a mediator. This can lead to anxiety, emotional distress, and even physical symptoms.
So in those cases, the child's symptoms are actually a sign
that something's off in the family structure.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the goal of structural family therapy is to help the family reestablish healthy boundaries, strengthen parental leadership, and improve communication patterns. It's like helping the family rebuild its foundation,
Right.
creating a more stable and supportive structure for everyone.
It sounds like a powerful approach.
It is.
But also potentially challenging to get everyone on board.
It can be.
Yeah.
Family therapy often requires a willingness to look at those long-held patterns and dynamics and be open to changing them.
Right.
But the rewards can be significant. Improved communication, stronger relationships,
Right.
and a greater sense of connection and well-being for everyone involved.
Okay, so we've got structural family therapy. What other models are out there?
Another interesting model mentioned in our sources is psychodynamically oriented family therapy.
Okay, so this is where we start to see the influence of those unconscious patterns and how they can play out across generations.
Exactly.
Psychodynamic family therapy explores the impact of past experiences,
Okay.
particularly those from the parents' families of origin on the current family dynamics.
It's like those echoes of the past we were talking about earlier, but now they're reverberating through multiple generations.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this approach might involve exploring unresolved conflicts from the parents' childhoods.
Okay.
Or how those early experiences might be unconsciously shaping their parenting styles.
So it's like tracing those threads of influence back through time to understand how they're weaving together the fabric of the present family system.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And by understanding those historical roots,
Right.
families can start to break free from those dysfunctional patterns
Okay.
and create healthier, more fulfilling relationships.
It sounds like quite a journey.
It is.
Are there any other family therapy models we should know about?
Our sources also touch on behavioral family therapy,
which, as the name suggests, focuses on the observable behaviors within the family.
Right.
And how those behaviors are being reinforced or discouraged.
So it's about understanding the patterns of rewards and punishments that might be contributing to the problem.
For example, if a child is constantly throwing tantrums to get attention, a behavioral family therapist might help the parents develop strategies to ignore those tantrums and instead reward positive behaviors.
It's just like retraining the family system, creating new patterns of interaction that are more constructive and supportive.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then, of course, there's the work of Virginia Satter, a true pioneer in the field of family therapy.
I've heard her name before.
Right.
What was unique about her approach?
Satter's approach was very much focused on communication and emotional expression within the family.
Right.
She believed that healthy families are able to communicate openly and honestly with each other, and that each member feels valued and respected.
That sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
What kind of techniques did she use?
Satie developed a number of techniques to help families improve their communication skills, build self-esteem, and create a more nurturing environment.
Okay.
For example, She emphasized the importance of congruent communication, where our words, body language, and tone of voice all align with our true feelings.
Right.
She also encouraged families to focus on their strength and resources rather than just their problems.
It sounds like her approach was very humanistic.
It was.
Similar to Roger's focus on empathy and unconditional positive regard.
There are definitely some similarities there.
Yeah.
Both Rogers and Satter believed in the inherent goodness of people and their capacity for growth and change. And both emphasized the importance of creating a safe and supportive environment where individuals and families can heal and thrive.
So we've got structural family therapy, psychodynamic family therapy, behavioral family therapy, and Satter's communication-focused approach. That's quite a range.
It is. And it just goes to show that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to family therapy.
Right.
The best approach will depend on the specific family, their challenges, and their goals for therapy.
It sounds like it takes a skilled therapist to navigate all those different models and approaches.
It does.
Yeah.
But the beauty of family therapy is that it recognizes the interconnectedness of our lives and how our relationships with our families can profoundly shape who we are.
Right.
And by working with the whole family system, we can create lasting change that ripples out and impacts everyone involved.
I'm starting to see how all these different threads are weaving together: Rogerian therapy, couples therapy, family therapy, and now integrative psychotherapy. It's like a tapestry of human connection and growth.
And speaking of weaving together different approaches, let's dive into the fascinating world of integrative psychotherapy, which takes this idea of blending different perspectives to a whole new level.
Okay, so we touched on this earlier.
Yeah.
But I'm still a little fuzzy on how integrative psychotherapy differs from just being eclectic.
Right.
It seems like a lot of therapists might use techniques from different schools of thought without necessarily calling it integrative psychotherapy.
You're right. There is some overlap.
Yeah.
But integrative psychotherapy is more than just picking and choosing techniques from different theories based on what seems to work. It's about creating a cohesive and intentional approach that's based on a deep understanding of why certain things work and how they fit together.
So it's not just about having a toolbox with different tools.
Right.
But also knowing which tool to use for which job and why.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about being able to articulate the rationale behind your choices and create a treatment plan that's tailored to the individual client's needs and goals.
Our sources mention a few different approaches to integration, right? One is theoretical integration.
Right.
Which sounds like the most challenging.
It can be.
Yeah.
Theoretical integration involves bringing together concepts from different theoretical frameworks, even those with seemingly contrasting viewpoints.
Right.
It's like trying to merge two different maps of the same territory, finding those points of overlap and reconciling the differences.
It sounds like it would take a lot of mental gymnastics.
It does.
Yeah. What are the benefits of going to all that trouble?
While theoretical integration is complex,
it
can lead to some truly innovative approaches, offering a richer understanding of how different factors contribute to human experience. It's about creating a more comprehensive and nuanced model of how people change and grow.
So instead of just seeing things through one lens, you're getting a more multifaceted perspective.
Exactly. And that can be incredibly valuable for both the therapist and the client.
Our sources also mention assimilative integration. How is that different from theoretical integration?
Assimilative integration is about grounding oneself in one primary theoretical system, but being open to incorporating practices and views from other systems. It's like having a home base, a core set of principles, but being willing to venture out and explore other neighborhoods, bringing back new ideas and tools that enhance your practice.
So it's like having a strong foundation, but also being open to expanding your horizons.
Exactly. And this approach allows for both depth and breadth. Providing a solid theoretical framework while also embracing the richness and diversity of the field.
That sounds like a good balance.
It is.
What are some other approaches to integration?
Another fascinating approach is the common factors approach, which focuses on those core elements that seem to be present across most effective therapies, regardless of their specific theoretical orientation.
We talked about those earlier. The therapeutic alliance, a shared belief in the possibility of change.
Right.
And the therapist's ability to create a safe and supportive space.
And this approach highlights the importance of those human elements.
Right?
Empathy, genuineness, positive regard.
Yeah.
Regardless of the specific techniques being used.
It's like those essential nutrients that every plant needs to thrive, regardless of its specific species or environment.
A perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And this brings us to the idea of multi-theoretical approaches.
Okay.
Which, unlike theoretical integration,
Right.
don't try to merge